My name is Chloe, and I turned 25 today. Instead of celebrating, I'm halfway through a 12-hour shift at Westwood General Hospital. Just a moment ago, my phone lit up with what has to be the worst birthday text in history. We sold your car. The family comes first. Be grateful we let you live here, basically for free. My stomach plunged. That car was my freedom. I paid for every last cent of it with my nursing salary. Then a second message popped up, this one about my brother's tuition, $6,200 due this week. They've siphoned money from me before, but something about this time felt final. This time it was going to be different. I just didn't know how radically different my life was about to become. Before I get into the rest of my story, if you're watching, I'd love it if you could drop a comment to let me know where you're from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about what happens when you finally draw a line in the sand with family. Growing up in the Grant household was an education in a rigid pecking order. My father, Richard, was the undisputed king, ruling with an authority that was never to be challenged. My mother, Helen, was his loyal second-in-command, echoing his opinions without a second thought. And then there was my younger brother, Leo, the golden child, who could do no wrong in their eyes. This dynamic was the bedrock of our family for as long as I can remember. I got my first job at 16, watching neighborhood kids and stocking shelves at a local market on weekends. The moment I turned 18, the freeloading, as my father called it, was over. That's when I started paying board, even though I was still a senior in high school. $400 a month, handed directly to my parents, though I never noticed any upgrades around the house that my contribution might have funded. Meanwhile, Leo lived in a state of complete financial bliss. His room was a shrine to the latest gaming consoles, designer sneakers, and any other expensive gadget that caught his fancy. My parents bankrolled all of his hobbies, his sports teams, and even his first car when he hit 16. It was a reality so different from mine, it felt like we lived in separate houses. And the taking didn't just stop at money. When I won a small community grant for college, my parents insisted I turn it over, since they were providing me with a roof over my head. When my grandmother passed and left me her favorite sapphire pendant, it magically materialized around my mother's throat at a holiday dinner. Family shares, she'd said, with a tight smile, when I dared to ask about it. Despite these constant hurdles, I chased my dream of becoming a nurse with a relentless focus. I juggled community college classes between work shifts, spent my weekends on clinical rotations, and fueled myself with caffeine for late-night study sessions that eventually earned me my RN license. The hospital offered me a position right after graduation, and for the first time, I felt a sense of accomplishment that my family couldn't touch or take away. Just last month, that hard work paid off with a promotion to charge nurse on the pediatric floor. My colleagues were amazing, bringing in cupcakes and signing cards to celebrate. One nurse, Sarah, even gave me a little stethoscope charm for my bracelet. For our rising star, she'd said, and her pride felt so genuine. Those small moments of validation from my work family were everything to me, because they were a currency I never received at home. The car was my first real taste of independence. It was a used Honda Civic. Nothing flashy, but it was 100% mine. I saved for 2 years, spent weeks researching the most reliable models, and negotiated the final price all by myself. The day I drove it home, my father just scoffed. "Could have gotten you a much better deal if you'd just asked me," he'd grumbled. But I didn't care. The keys in my hand were a symbol of something he couldn't control. For my birthday this year, I'd made a small plan to celebrate after my shift. It wasn't anything extravagant, just dinner with a few friends at a little Italian place downtown. I'd even splurged on a new dress for the occasion, a rare treat for myself. The hospital scheduler had put me on the rota to work, but I didn't mind. I figured my real celebration would begin after I clocked out. The atmosphere at home had been growing more tense in recent weeks, as Leo's university acceptance letters started rolling in. My parents displayed each one on the refrigerator like a sacred artifact. "Your brother is destined for great things," my father would announce at dinner, over and over again. The unspoken comparison, the "unlike you," hung thick in the air every single time. Last Sunday, they threw a family dinner to announce that Leo had chosen State University. The best business program in the state, my father declared with a booming voice. Nobody brought up the tiny detail of how this prestigious education was going to be paid for. Now, sitting in the hospital break room, I finally understood why. They had been scheming to use my money all along. My mother was constantly reminding me how lucky I was that they still let me live at home, even with my full-time career. Most parents would charge you a lot more, she'd say. I had looked at apartments, of course, but the rental market in our city was brutal. Moving out felt financially impossible, especially with my student loans still hanging over me. I'd run the numbers and figured one more year at home would let me save up enough for a security deposit and a solid 6-month emergency fund, a goal that was now completely up in smoke. What my parents never bothered to acknowledge was how much I already contributed, far beyond the monthly rent. Groceries would magically restock the fridge after I did my shopping. Leaky faucets and broken appliances were fixed because I was the one who coordinated the repairs. The utility bills were paid on time because I had set up automatic payments from my own bank account. I was operating more like a household manager than a dependent daughter, but that narrative never ever changed. As my birthday got closer, I started getting subtle hints that any personal celebration would be completely overshadowed by Leo's college send-off. "We need to focus on what's really important right now," my mother said when I casually mentioned wanting to take the day off. The message was crystal clear. My milestones didn't matter. What I hadn't grasped was that they weren't just brushing my birthday aside. They were actively using it as a strategic opportunity to blindside me with their demands. Because who would make a scene and cause family drama on their own birthday? They were banking on my long history of giving in, my established pattern of choosing family harmony over my own well-being. It was the perfect time to strike. The morning of my birthday started with a familiar silence. No card waiting for me at the breakfast table. No happy birthday as I got ready for my shift. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that my self-worth wasn't tied to their approval, but still, the complete and utter lack of acknowledgement stung in a way I tried my best to ignore. The pediatric ward was a whirlwind of its usual controlled chaos. 2 new admissions before 9 a.m., a nervous new mom with 1,000 questions, and a mountain of charting that seemed to grow every time I turned my back. I dove headfirst into the work, finding a strange comfort in the clear-cut routines and the undeniable purpose of caring for other people. Around noon, Sarah appeared at the nurse's station holding a small cupcake with a single candle flickering on top. "Make a wish," she whispered, keeping the moment just between us. She knew I hated being the center of attention. That small, simple act of kindness made my eyes well up. "We're still on for dinner after your shift, right?" she reminded me. "Jess and Maria already have a table booked at Giovanni's." I nodded, suddenly so grateful for the friendships that had blossomed in the middle of hospital hallways and patient rooms. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, already picturing myself unwinding with people who actually saw me. Even Dr. Evans noticed as he walked by. "Is it your birthday, Chloe? And you're still holding down the fort? That's dedication. This hospital is lucky to have you." That one casual comment held more genuine warmth than I'd heard from my own family in years. By 2 p.m, I had almost managed to forget the disappointment of the morning. Then, my phone vibrated in my pocket during a rare lull. I figured it might be a birthday text from my aunt or a cousin, so I glanced at the screen. Dad. "We sold your Civic. The family needed the money. You should be thankful you live here basically for free." I read the message 3 times, convinced my tired brain was misinterpreting the words. My car? The one that was parked in our driveway this morning when I left for work? The one with my name, and only my name, on the title, bought and paid for entirely by me? Before I could even begin to process it, a second message buzzed through. "Dad." "Oh, and Leo starts at the state university next month. You're covering his first term. That'll be $6,200. We need it by Friday." My hand started shaking so violently I almost dropped my phone. A hot wave of disbelief crashed over me, followed by an immediate ice-cold surge of pure anger. They had sold my property without so much as a word to me, and now they were demanding I drain my savings account for Leo's education. I ducked into a supply closet for a sliver of privacy and tried calling my father, straight to voicemail. I tried my mother next. She picked up on the fourth ring. "Chloe, I'm a little busy right now," she answered, her voice sounding unnaturally bright and cheerful. I could hear Leo laughing loudly in the background. "Mom, what is this text from Dad? You can't just sell my car. The title is in my name." There was a beat of silence. "Well, your father handled all of that. We needed the funds for some family expenses, and since you live here for practically nothing, it just seemed like the fair thing to do. Besides, you can take the bus to work. Plenty of people do." The casual, dismissive way she talked about my property rights left me speechless. "That's theft, Mom. You can't legally sell something that doesn't belong to you. Don't be so dramatic," she sighed, the irritation clear in her voice. "Your father added his name to the title a few months ago when he took it for an oil change. You signed the forms, don't you remember?" And I did. I remembered him shoving a clipboard at me one morning as I was rushing out the door. Just a registration renewal, he had said, not even looking up. The deliberate, calculated nature of their deception hit me like a punch to the gut. And the tuition money I managed to choke out? Well, that's just about being fair. We supported you for all these years. Now it's your turn to step up and help your brother. It's what families do for each other. Her tone made it sound like the most reasonable request in the world. "I have to go," I said, knowing I couldn't continue the conversation without exploding. Patients are waiting. As soon as I hung up, a text from Leo appeared. "Hey, thanks for spotting me for tuition, sis. Dad said you were covering the first semester. You're the best." The sheer entitlement in that message was the final push that sent me from shock into a full-blown rage. I typed and deleted half a dozen furious replies before shoving my phone back in my pocket. This was not something that could be dealt with during a shift. My patients deserved all of my attention, not the shattered focus of someone whose life was imploding. For the next 6 hours, I ran on pure autopilot. I dispensed medications, checked vitals, and reassured anxious parents, all while my mind was a chaotic whirlwind of calculations and furious scenarios. The $6,200 they were demanding was the majority of my apartment savings fund. The car was worth at least $12,000, money I now knew I would never see. By the time my shift finally ended, I had 3 more texts from my father, each one more condescending and demanding than the last. "Dad, we need that tuition transfer by Friday." "Dad, your mother's getting stressed out about this. Don't make things any harder." "Dad, family obligations come before your personal wants. We raised you better than this." I texted my friends to cancel dinner, promising I'd explain later and reschedule. This situation needed to be handled immediately, and I needed every ounce of my energy for the confrontation that was waiting for me at home. The irony wasn't lost on me. Another birthday celebration sacrificed at the altar of family drama. The bus ride home was a miserable 45 minutes, a stark contrast to my usual 15-minute drive. But every stop along the way, every minute I sat there stewing, only served to harden my resolve. This was going to end tonight, one way or another. When I finally walked through the front door, the smell of roast beef filled the air. My mother's go-to meal for either a big celebration or a very difficult conversation. The good china was set on the dining room table, another clear warning sign. "There she is," my father called out from his throne-like recliner, his eyes still glued to the television. "The birthday girl, home at last. Dinner's almost ready." I set my bag down on the floor, my movements deliberate and slow. Where is my car? I sold it this morning. Some guy paid cash. He finally swiveled his head to look at me, a defiant challenge in his eyes. Perfect timing, too, with Leo's tuition payment coming up. "You had no right," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "That was my property." My mother bustled in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Let's not start the evening off with a fight. I made your favorite dessert. A chocolate cake isn't going to fix grand theft auto, Mom." Leo came bounding down the stairs, completely oblivious to the suffocating tension in the room. "Hey, the tuition fairy," he joked, giving my arm a light punch. "Dad says you're covering my first term. Awesome, since I just ordered a new laptop for my classes." The casual, unthinking entitlement in his voice made something inside me snap. Years of placating, of accepting, of shrinking myself to fit their demands, all crystallized into a single, blinding moment of clarity. This was not going to happen again. "Dinner's ready," my mother announced, gesturing us towards the dining room. "Let's all sit down like a civilized family." The meal started with painfully strained small talk. The weather, a little gossip from the hospital, Leo's dorm assignment. No one mentioned my birthday, the car, or the tuition. I just pushed my food around my plate, waiting. Finally, as my mother brought out the cake, my father cleared his throat. "So, about Leo's tuition. We'll need that check from you by Friday. The university wants the first payment before he can go to orientation." I set my fork down with a quiet clink. "I'm not paying for Leo's tuition." The silence that followed was so thick it felt physical, pressing in on me from all sides. "What do you mean you're not paying?" my father asked. His voice was still deceptively calm, but I saw his knuckles turn white as he gripped his water glass. "It means no. I'm not giving you $6,200. I'm not funding Leo's education. And you had no legal right to sell my car." My mother immediately jumped in. "Chloe, be reasonable. We've given you everything. A roof over your head, support all through nursing school, a family dinner every night. I paid for nursing school myself," I shot back. "I pay rent, I buy groceries, and that car was mine. Purchased with my money, with my name on the title, until Dad committed fraud by forging my signature to add his name." My father's face started to turn a dark shade of red. "You ungrateful little... After everything we've done for you, you live in this house for practically nothing. I pay $400 a month in rent, plus utilities, plus half the groceries. That's hardly nothing. That's a fraction of what a real apartment would cost," he roared, his mask of calm completely shattered. "Then maybe it's time I found out for myself." Leo was looking back and forth between us, his usual smugness replaced by genuine confusion. "Wait, so you're not paying for my tuition? Dad said it was all taken care of." I turned to face him directly. "No, Leo, I'm not. Dad sold my car without my permission and pocketed the cash. You're going to have to look into student loans just like most other college students. This is absurd." My father stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "Your brother deserves a good education. Family helps family." "It's funny how that help only seems to flow in one direction," I replied, staying seated. "When I needed money for my nursing prerequisites, I worked double shifts. When I needed new scrubs for my clinicals, I picked up extra hours on the weekends. When my old car needed a new transmission, I took the bus for a month until I saved up enough to fix it. Where was the family help then?" My mother started to cry, her classic move whenever a confrontation wasn't going her way. "Why are you doing this to us, to your poor brother? We're your family. Family doesn't steal from each other, Mom. Family doesn't forge signatures on legal documents. Family doesn't present their own child with an invoice for their sibling's future." My father's face was now a frightening shade of purple. "You have two choices, Chloe. You either write that check for your brother's tuition by Friday, or you pack your bags and find somewhere else to live. Family comes first, and if you can't put this family first, then you don't deserve to be in it." I slowly rose to my feet, matching his stance. "Is that your final word? And if you walk out that door without agreeing to help your brother," he continued, steamrolling over me, "then you are dead to me. Dead to me. No daughter of mine would ever be this selfish. That threat, the one that had worked like a charm so many times before, the one that always kept me in line and maintained the toxic family balance, this time, it just fell flat. Something inside me had fundamentally shifted. It was a change so deep, I felt physically different standing there. "I'll have my things packed and gone by morning," I said quietly. My mother gasped. "You can't be serious. Where will you go? What will you possibly do? I'll figure it out. I always do." I turned and walked out of the dining room. "She's bluffing," I heard Leo say, his voice a mix of bravado and uncertainty. "She always caves. Remember when Dad used her graduation money for the new deck? She griped for a week, but she still handed it over." "Not this time," I said, without looking back. "Happy birthday to me." My father's furious voice followed me all the way up the stairs. "You will regret this for the rest of your life. After everything we've done for you." What he didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that the only thing I regretted was not doing this years ago. Once I was in my bedroom, I shut the door and leaned back against it, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sheer scale of what I had just done was threatening to crush me. 25 years of quiet compliance had just been detonated in a single fiery conversation. But underneath the crushing anxiety, something else was bubbling up. It was an unfamiliar feeling, but I recognized it as relief. I sat on the edge of my bed, pulled out my phone, and ignored the buzzing notifications from downstairs. I had 3 missed calls from Sarah. I called her back first. "Chloe, are you okay? We were at the restaurant and got worried when you didn't show." "I need a massive favor," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can I possibly crash at your place tonight? The family situation just exploded." "Of course. Don't even ask. Do you need me to come and get you? I'll grab an Uber. Thank you." Next, I called Maria, another nurse from my floor who I knew had recently moved. She'd mentioned her new apartment complex had some vacancies. "Any chance that 1 bedroom is still available?" I asked. "I need to move." Immediately. While my family presumably continued their dramatic dinner downstairs, I started a methodical audit of my life. Clothes, important documents, my nursing gear, and a few personal items went into piles. What could I realistically fit into 2 suitcases? What was absolutely essential? As I sorted through my belongings, a flood of memories of past financial manipulations came rushing back. The first real paycheck from the hospital, when my father insisted I contribute to a family vacation fund that somehow only paid for a trip to Florida for him and my mother. The $300 my aunt gave me for Christmas, which my mother took for safekeeping and never returned. The student loan refund check that was mysteriously needed to cover unexpected household repairs. Each incident at the time had seemed isolated, almost reasonable when framed as a family need, but now, strung together, they formed a clear, undeniable pattern of systematic financial abuse. It was a theft that had stolen more than just my money. It had stolen my autonomy, my boundaries, and very nearly my sense of self-worth. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank accounts. After all my monthly payments for rent, student loans, and other bills, I had managed to save just over $7,000 for an apartment. It wasn't enough for the best places in town, but it was enough to get me started somewhere new. A text from Jess, another nurse friend, came through. "My cousin manages a place called Oakwood Heights. It's budget-friendly and in a safe neighborhood. Want me to give her a call?" The support was materializing from places I never would have expected. People I didn't even realize had been watching, who had noticed the subtle, unspoken signs of my family's toxicity, were now stepping up to help. While digging through my closet, I found the folder with all my car paperwork. The original title clearly showed only my name. Stapled behind it was the new registration, with my father's signature crudely forged next to mine. I systematically took photos of every single document, every receipt, every proof of purchase and ownership I had. In my desk drawer, I found years of rent receipts, handwritten by my father, $400 a month since I was 18. It added up to nearly $25,000 paid directly to my parents over 6 years. I had insisted on getting receipts for tax purposes, a lie they had accepted without a second thought. Now, those little scraps of paper were a meticulous record of my contributions. Deeper in the drawer, I found old bank statements showing withdrawals for household expenses, lists of groceries I had bought for the family, and notes about bills I had covered during their lean months. I had, without even realizing it, been documenting the profound financial imbalance in our home for years. Around 10 p.m., I heard my parents' bedroom door shut. The sound of Leo's video games drifted from under my door. I kept packing, now carefully pulling out my birth certificate, social security card, and passport from their hiding spot inside an old textbook. My nursing degrees and certifications went into a protective sleeve. The stethoscope my clinical instructor had given me when I graduated. The small wooden box holding my grandmother's earrings, which I had managed to hide away when the rest of her jewelry vanished. By midnight, 2 large suitcases and a backpack held the entire portable contents of my life. My bookshelf, my bed, my desk, all of it would have to stay behind. They were small sacrifices for the price of freedom. During those quiet, focused hours of packing, a plan began to form. It wasn't just a plan for immediate escape, it was a plan for long-term justice. Using my laptop, I built a comprehensive spreadsheet. I cataloged every single financial transaction, every loan that was never repaid, every item that was taken, every contribution that was demanded of me. The car sale, approximately $12,000. The monthly rent for 6 years, $24,000. Household expenses beyond rent, a conservative estimate of $8,000. The graduation money for the deck repairs, $1,000. The student loan money diverted for family needs, $5,000. The birthday and holiday gifts that were confiscated. The spreadsheet grew, page after page of cold, hard financial data. By my conservative estimate, the total came to over $43,000 that had been extracted from me since I turned 18. Money that should have bought my freedom years ago. In a separate document, I began to draft a formal letter. It wasn't a letter filled with anger or accusations. It was a professional accounting of funds owed, property illegally sold, and a clear statement of my intent to pursue legal remedies if the matter was not addressed. I cited the relevant state laws regarding fraudulent property transfer, tenants' rights, and familial financial abuse. To this letter, I attached digital copies of every piece of documentation I had, photographs of the receipts, the bank statements, and both versions of the car title. The final document was 27 pages long. At around 1 a.m., I heard Leo's door finally close. The house fell silent except for the faint sound of my father's snoring down the hall. I printed 3 complete copies of the entire documentation package. One would stay with me. One would be sent to a lawyer I had found online who specialized in family financial abuse, and one would be left behind for my family to discover in the morning. By 2 a.m., all my preparations were finished. I changed the passwords on all of my online accounts, wiped my personal information from our shared family computer, and contacted the hospital's HR department to update my address and phone number in their records. I took one last look around the room that had been mine since I was a child. The swimming trophies from high school, the nursing textbooks on the shelf, the bulletin board covered in photos of my friends from the hospital. There was nothing there that couldn't be replaced or simply left behind. The things that truly mattered were already packed or safely stored in my heart. The very last item I placed in my bag was a small framed photo of my grandmother. "Always know your own worth," she had told me once, long ago. Tonight, I was finally beginning to understand what she meant. The house made its familiar nighttime creaks as I carried my bags downstairs at 3 a.m. Each step was carefully calculated to avoid the floorboards that I knew would groan. Years of late-night hospital shifts had made me an expert at moving silently through a sleeping house. In the kitchen, I placed one copy of my documentation package squarely on the counter, clearly labeled Family Financial Accounting in bold letters. It wasn't hidden, but it wasn't immediately obvious either. They would find it when they woke up to make their morning coffee. Next, I sent a detailed email to the lawyer I had researched, attaching digital copies of everything and requesting a consultation for later that day. The automated response was immediate and strangely reassuring. Your message has been received. Our office will contact you during business hours. My phone showed several missed calls and a barrage of texts from my parents and Leo, all sent after I had walked out of the dining room. I hadn't even heard them through my closed door. The messages followed a predictable, pathetic pattern. Dad, you're being completely ridiculous. Come downstairs and apologize to your mother. Mom, please don't upset your father anymore. Just come talk to us. We can work this out. Leo, way to ruin my college plans, sis. Selfish much? Every single message just reinforced the rightness of my decision. There was no recognition of their wrongdoing, no acknowledgement of the lines they had crossed, just the same old expectation of my continued compliance. I wrote a single, final text to my mother's number. I'm safe. Do not contact me. Then I silenced all notifications from every member of my family. The empty spot in the driveway where my car should have been parked felt like a gaping wound, a physical manifestation of everything they had taken from me. I stood there for a moment, letting myself feel the full weight of the loss, and then I walked to the street corner to wait for my Uber. The driver, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, according to the app, took one look at my 2 suitcases and my strained expression and, blessedly, didn't ask any questions. Long night was her only comment as I got in. Long life, I replied quietly, but I think it's about to get better. Sarah's apartment building came into view about 20 minutes later. Despite the ungodly hour, she was waiting for me in the lobby, her hair messy from sleep but her eyes wide with concern. The guest room is all yours, for as long as you need it, she said, grabbing one of my bags. Do you want to talk about it, or can it wait until morning? Morning, I said, a wave of exhaustion suddenly washing over me. And thank you, Sarah. This means more than you can possibly know. The guest room was small, but it was perfect. Clean sheets, a soft lamp by the bed, and the profound luxury of privacy. I set down my bags and then collapsed onto the bed. Despite everything, sleep came almost instantly, a deeper and more peaceful sleep than I had experienced in years under my parents' roof. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of fresh coffee. For a brief second, I was completely disoriented. Then the events of the previous day came crashing back. My birthday, the car, the fight, the escape. Sarah was sitting at her kitchen counter, scrolling on her phone. Morning, warrior. How are you feeling? Like I should have done this 5 years ago, I answered, and it was the honest truth. Your phone has been going nuts, she said, nodding towards my backpack where my silenced phone was tucked away. I could hear it vibrating from across the room for the past hour. I pulled it out and saw a staggering number of notifications. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, a dozen voicemails, and not just from my parents and Leo, but from aunts, uncles, and family friends. They had found the document package. The most interesting texts were from my Aunt Carol, my father's sister. What on earth did you leave on their counter? Your father is absolutely apoplectic. Did you really keep a record of everything? All these years? I had no idea this was happening, Chloe. None of us did. They are in complete and total panic mode over here. Your father is calling everyone he knows. I sipped the coffee Sarah handed me while I scrolled through the digital fallout of my departure. My mother's messages had quickly shifted from anger to pure manipulation. How could you do this to us, your own family? Your father could lose his job if any of this gets out. Please just come home so we can talk about this like reasonable people. Leo is devastated. His whole future is on the line because of you. My father's messages took a different, more aggressive path. This is slander. We gave you a good life. You will regret this betrayal for as long as you live. No one is ever going to believe you over your own parents. Legal action? Against your own family? You've completely lost your mind. And then, the most telling text of all. What will it take to make this go away? Name your price. And there it was. When faced with irrefutable evidence of years of financial exploitation, his first instinct was to try and make another transaction. Everything to him was reducible to a dollar value. Leo's messages were the most surprising. Dad is going ballistic over some papers you left. What did you do? Is it true they sold your car without telling you? That's really messed up. Dad says you're making it all up, but Mom won't stop crying. What's actually real here? It was the first tiny crack in the facade, the first hint that my brother might not have been a willing accomplice, but simply a clueless beneficiary of a system designed to favor him. While I was reading, a new text from Aunt Carol came in. Your father is on the front porch arguing with the neighbors, who I guess came over to complain about all the shouting. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since she found your documents. I am in utter shock reading through these records, Chloe. I had no idea it was this bad. Can we please talk? I only responded to Aunt Carol. I'm safe. I'm meeting with legal counsel today. I will be in touch when I'm ready. Sarah watched me absorb this digital tidal wave with a knowing look in her eyes. Family drama going nuclear? They found what I left for them, I explained. A complete and total accounting of every dollar they've siphoned from me over the years. Every lie, every theft, with proof. Damn, she whispered, her eyes wide. No wonder they're freaking out. What's your next move? I have a meeting with a lawyer at 11. Then I'm going apartment hunting. I'm starting over. She nodded decisively. My shift doesn't start until 3. You want some backup? The simple offer of support almost broke my composure. That would be amazing. While I showered and got ready for the day, my phone continued its silent, vibrating dance on the counter. New people were being pulled into the drama. Uncle Robert. Your father says you're making wild accusations. What's going on? Cousin Jennifer. Everyone is talking about some document you left. My mom is crying. What happened? A family friend, Mark. Frank asked me to reach out to you. He says there's been a terrible misunderstanding. The entire family system was mobilizing to restore its equilibrium, to pull the rogue member back into the fold. But their efforts were aimed at the wrong person. I wasn't a rogue member. I was free. Before we left for the lawyer's office, I sent a single group text to my extended family. For years, I have been the subject of financial exploitation by my parents. Yesterday, they sold my car without my permission and demanded I pay for Leo's college tuition. I have left comprehensive documentation of all financial abuse with my legal counsel. I am safe, but I will not be returning to that house. Please respect my privacy at this time. Then I turned my phone off completely. Whatever storm was breaking over my family's home, I was no longer going to be caught in its reign. The meeting with the lawyer, Eleanor Vance, went even better than I could have hoped. After she meticulously reviewed all of my documentation, she confirmed what I already suspected. I had an incredibly strong case for the recovery of my assets. The car sale is the most clear-cut issue, she explained, her voice calm and professional. Forging a signature on a title transfer is a felony. It's fraud, plain and simple. The rent payments are a bit murkier from a legal standpoint, but they are crucial in establishing the long-term pattern of financial control and exploitation. By the end of our 90-minute meeting, we had a concrete plan of action. First, a formal demand letter for the immediate return of the proceeds from the car sale. Second, a report filed with the local authorities regarding the fraudulent title transfer. And third, preparing for a civil suit if they refuse to cooperate. Most cases like this settle out of court once the guilty party realizes the full extent of their legal exposure is imminent, Eleanor assured me. No one wants their family's dirty financial laundry aired in public, especially when the evidence is this thorough. After the lawyer's office, Sarah and I met Maria's cousin at Oakwood Heights. The available one-bedroom apartment wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, it was secure, and it was well within my budget. Most importantly, it only required the first month's rent and a security deposit, with no need for a lengthy credit check or rental history. I signed the lease on the spot. The move-in date was immediate. Furnished units are $500 more a month, the manager explained, but we can provide the basics if you need them: a bed, a table, some essential furniture. The extra cost would definitely stretch my budget, but the thought of sleeping on the floor after everything I'd just been through seemed like an unnecessary cruelty. I agreed to the furnished option. By late that afternoon, I had my own apartment. I had legal representation, and I had the fragile beginnings of a new, independent life. Only then did I dare to turn my phone back on, bracing myself for the inevitable onslaught. 112 missed calls, 76 voicemails, over 200 text messages. The most surprising thing was a series of 8 missed calls from Leo himself, followed by a very long text. Chloe. I had no idea about any of this. Dad always just said you were happy to help out with family expenses. I never knew they took your car money or your grant money or any of that other stuff in your documents. They're telling everyone you're lying, but Dad keeps changing his story about how he sold the car. And Mom accidentally let something slip about Grandma's jewelry, too. I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm really sorry if I was a part of hurting you. It was the first apology, the first crack in the family's unified narrative. It was the first sign that perhaps the golden child status had come at a cost he was only now beginning to understand. My bank had sent a series of automated fraud alerts, multiple attempts to access your online banking from an unrecognized device. They had actually tried to get into my accounts, probably looking for the tuition money they still felt entitled to. Aunt Carol's messages had grown even more urgent. Your parents are completely falling apart. Your father has been on the phone with lawyers all day. The neighbors called in a noise complaint this morning. The police actually came by. Your mother told me about the jewelry, your grandmother's pieces. I had no idea. Please call me when you can. I think you need to know what's really happening here. I finally called her back from the safety of my new, empty apartment, where the only furniture was the basic rental set. Chloe? Her voice was strained. Are you safe? I'm fine, I said. I just started over. A new apartment? A new life. Your documents. Chloe, I had no idea. I had no idea things were this bad for you. None of us did. She paused, and I could hear her take a deep breath. Your father is telling everyone you've had some kind of mental breakdown, that you're making all of this up for attention. The documentation speaks for itself, I replied calmly. Bank records don't lie. I know. That's why this is so devastating. Frank has always been a controlling man, but this is beyond anything I could have ever imagined. She paused again. He's contacted 3 different lawyers today. None of them will take his case after he told them about your evidence. What about Leo's tuition? I asked, suddenly curious about the original catalyst for this whole explosion. He's applying for student loans now. Your mother is a wreck about the fact that he might have to delay his enrollment by a semester. The familiar guilt trip, even when delivered secondhand. He'll survive starting college a semester late if it comes to that. Plenty of students do. Your father... She hesitated. He tried to report your car as stolen this morning. The police officer asked to see the title, and when your father showed him the altered document, the officer recognized the forgery immediately. There's now talk of potential criminal charges. The consequences were unfolding faster than even I could have anticipated. That wasn't my intention. I know that, honey. But actions have consequences, even for a man like Frank. Her voice softened. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. She always worried that Frank was too tight-fisted with his money and too controlling with you. The conversation continued, filling in the blanks of the family meltdown that was happening across town. My father, alternating between explosive rage and quiet panic. My mother, cycling through floods of tears and bitter recriminations. And Leo, growing more and more withdrawn as he began to process the true dynamics of our family. After I hung up, I sat in my nearly empty apartment, surrounded by my 2 suitcases and the sterile rental furniture. Everything I owned in the entire world now fit into this one small space. And yet, somehow, I had never felt richer. A text from Sarah came through. "Dinner at my place tonight. The whole floor crew is coming. No birthday should go uncelebrated." That evening, surrounded by the colleagues who had truly become my friends, I finally had a birthday celebration that wasn't tainted by manipulation or obligation. Small, thoughtful gifts appeared on the table. A potted plant for my new apartment, gift cards for groceries and household supplies, a newly framed copy of my nursing license to replace the one I had left behind. To Chloe, Sarah toasted, raising her glass, who finally realized that her worth isn't determined by the people who try to diminish it. Later that night, alone in my new apartment, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of the changes, the grief for the family I had always wanted but never truly had, the lingering anger at the years of exploitation, the fear of an uncertain future, but underneath it all, a profound and overwhelming sense of relief that came from finally living my life for myself. My phone continued to collect messages from my family, their tone shifting as the reality of my departure and my documentation began to sink in. From my father. The police came to the house asking questions about the car sale. "Is this what you wanted? To completely destroy your own family?" From my mother. "Please just call us. Your father is talking about moving to avoid the embarrassment. What will people think?" From Leo. "I applied for student loans today. Dad is furious, says it will affect his credit score. Is that why you always seemed so stressed out about money? Were they taking your money all along?" Each message was a small window into their priorities: reputation, appearances, convenience. There was no remorse for the harm they had caused, no recognition of the boundaries they had shattered. The lawyer called with an update a few days later. "Your father's attorney has reached out to me. They are willing to discuss settlement terms regarding the car and the other financial matters." "So quickly?" I asked, surprised. "The evidence is overwhelming, Chloe. Plus, there's the potential for criminal exposure with that forged title. They are highly motivated to make this go away as quietly as possible." By the end of my birthday week, my new life was beginning to take shape. I bought some basic furnishings for my apartment. The hospital approved my request for extra shifts so I could rebuild my savings, and my friends continued to show up with support in small, unexpected ways. Most significantly, my father, through his attorney, agreed to return the full market value of the car, plus additional compensation for the other documented financial abuses. The total settlement came to $41,000. It wasn't every penny they owed me, but it was enough to secure my new beginning without a protracted legal battle. Leo contacted me directly, away from our parents' influence. "I've been reading through the copies of your documents. I had no idea they were taking your nursing school money while telling me you were happy to help with my expenses. I'm sorry, Chloe. I am really, really sorry." It was the first genuine apology I had received from anyone in my family. It was a small, fragile bridge built across the chasm of years of imbalance. 1 month after my birthday, my new apartment was finally starting to feel like a home. It was filled with simple, carefully chosen furniture. I painted the walls a soft blue, a quiet rebellion against the beige my father had always insisted on. My balcony had a small herb garden. It was a space that was entirely mine, reflecting choices that were entirely mine. The financial settlement arrived via a certified check, exactly as negotiated. There was no personal note, just the cold legal documentation of funds transferred to resolve all claims. It was business concluded. Family ties severed with the same clinical precision they had once used to extract my resources. I allocated the money methodically. A reliable used car, a different model this time, a fully funded emergency savings account, a large payment toward my student loans, and a small investment for my future security. Each transaction felt like a declaration of my independence. Each decision was made solely for my benefit. Leo started at the local community college, taking prerequisite classes while he waited for his student loan approval for the larger university. "I'm actually saving money this way," he texted me. "I might just get my associate's degree here first. It makes more financial sense." His financial awakening was continuing, evolving through regular texts and occasional phone calls, always when our parents weren't around. Dad tried to borrow money from my savings account yesterday. I caught him with my online banking open on his computer. "I'm finally starting to understand what you went through." My mother tried to orchestrate a reconciliation through intermediaries. First it was Aunt Carol, then a few family friends, each of them carrying carefully crafted messages of maternal concern that lacked any real acknowledgement of her wrongdoing. "She misses you," they would report. "The house feels so empty without you." I maintained a polite but firm boundary. "I'm doing well. I'm building a new life. I'm not ready for contact yet." Each messenger returned with my simple statement, and each time my mother's reported reaction was tearful, but without any substantive change in her perspective. My father maintained a complete silence after the settlement. His pride was wounded far more than his heart, according to the family grapevine. "He just doesn't understand why you had to go public with private family matters," Aunt Carol explained during one of our weekly calls. "He still sees it as a betrayal, not as an act of self-protection. His opinion mattered less and less to me with each passing day. His approval was no longer the currency that determined my self-worth. Professionally, I was thriving. The promotion to charge nurse became permanent, and there were hints from nursing administration about a potential path into management if I was interested. Being free from the constant financial drain of my family allowed me to pursue additional certifications, expanding my career options. Sarah and my other nurse friends remained a steady, supportive presence in my life. Our friendships deepened beyond just being colleagues. We had weekend brunches, movie nights, and hiking trips to nearby state parks. They were the family I was choosing, rather than the one I had inherited. 3 months after my departure, Aunt Carol arranged a carefully structured meeting. Just her, Leo, and me at a neutral restaurant. No parents, no pressure, just a conversation. "I just never saw it before," Leo admitted over dinner. "How differently they treated us. How much they took from you while they were just handing things to me. It all felt so normal, I never even thought to question it." "That's how these family systems work," I explained. "Everyone has a role they're assigned to play. The golden child isn't supposed to see the scapegoat's burden. That's part of the design. I'm just so sorry I was a part of it," he said, his eyes downcast. "The tuition demand was the last straw for you, wasn't it?" "The car was the last straw," I corrected gently, taking something that I had worked so hard for, something that was a symbol of my independence. The tuition was just the final confirmation of how they saw me. As an ATM, not as a daughter. Susan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your grandmother saw it happening, you know. She tried to intervene a few times before she passed away. That's why she left those specific items directly to you in her will. Most of which disappeared anyway," I noted, without any bitterness. "I've spoken to your mother about that." "That jewelry should be returned to you," Susan said, her expression turning serious. "Some of these patterns are finally breaking, Chloe. It's happening slowly, but they are breaking." That evening was the beginning of a real healing. Not with my parents, but with the members of my family who were capable of growth and self-reflection. Leo and I started to build a new relationship, one based on mutual respect instead of prescribed roles. And Susan became a surrogate mother figure, offering the kind of unconditional support my own biological mother never could. 6 months after my birthday revelation, I received a formal letter from my father. It wasn't an apology or an attempt at reconciliation. It was a notification. "We're selling the house and downsizing. If you want any of your remaining belongings, you need to arrange a pickup by the end of the month." Leo helped me retrieve my childhood mementos and the few possessions I had left behind. My parents had conveniently made themselves scarce during our scheduled visit. The room that I had occupied for 25 years was already being converted into a storage space, my existence already being erased. "They're struggling," Derek reported as we loaded the last of the boxes into his car. Dad's pride will never let him admit that he was wrong, but the rest of the family knows. The cousins, the aunts, the uncles, everyone has seen the documentation. Their standing in the family has changed. There were social consequences I had never anticipated or sought, but perhaps they were a necessary part of this systemic change. The family financial abuser, once exposed, could no longer operate with the same impunity. My mother had left a sealed envelope on my stripped mattress. Inside were my grandmother's sapphire pendant and earrings, returned without a note or any explanation. It was a silent acknowledgement of at least one specific wrongdoing. Perhaps it was the only one she could bring herself to admit. Today marks 1 year since that birthday text message changed my entire world. My new apartment has become a true home. My career continues to advance. My financial situation grows more secure every month. And most importantly, the constant low-grade anxiety that used to accompany every interaction with my parents has faded, replaced by a quiet confidence in my own boundaries and decisions. My family relationships are still evolving. Leo visits me regularly, and our sibling bond has been reforged on much healthier, more honest terms. Aunt Carol and her husband now include me in their holiday gatherings, and we're creating new traditions together. The extended family members who chose to see the truth now maintain connections with me that are free from my parents' narrative control. My parents themselves remain distant figures. I receive occasional updates through the family grapevine, their downsized home, my father's early retirement, my mother's various health concerns. It's information I receive with a sense of compassionate detachment, always maintaining the boundaries that protect the peace I fought so hard to win. The most valuable lesson I learned from this whole journey came from my lawyer, Eleanor, during our final meeting after the settlement. Family isn't just about who shares your DNA, she told me. Family is about who respects your boundaries, who celebrates your successes without jealousy, and who loves you without conditions or invoices attached. I've built that family for myself now. Friends who have become sisters, colleagues who have become my biggest supporters, a brother I reclaimed from a toxic dynamic, and extended family members who chose to prioritize our relationship over their loyalty to a harmful system. The freedom I fought for has blossomed into something far more precious than just independence. It's become a life of authentic connection, filled with relationships based on mutual respect, not on obligation or exploitation. It's the family I deserved all along. If you're watching this and something in my story resonated with your own experience, please know that you deserve better. Financial abuse within families often goes unrecognized because it's so frequently disguised in the language of duty, obligation, and loyalty. But love doesn't take, love doesn't exploit, and love certainly doesn't come with a price tag. What boundaries do you need to set in your own relationships? Have you ever experienced similar dynamics within your own family? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe if my story helped you recognize any patterns in your own life. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can possibly do is to say no more and walk towards the life that you truly deserve. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you all the courage in the world on yours.